Welcome to Check In with Jason Lauritsen, where we explore how to create connected, human workplaces that employees love and that fuel organizational success. Each week, I invite someone who is leading the way in this work to join me for a conversation to educate and inspire us. And this week, my guest is Carolina Terrazas. Carolina, I did my best, but my Nebraskan gets in the way all the time. So, with over 2 decades of global HR leadership experience across 3 countries, Carolina specializes in aligning people strategies with critical business objectives to drive continuous improvement and peak performance. As Vice President of Talent Management and Development at Schneider Electric, she is passionate about cultivating top talent and building future-ready leaders. Now, as if that job isn't enough or doesn't keep her busy enough, she also, outside of her corporate job, has a podcast. She's been doing this for 5 years. The podcast is called Leading Yourself. It is a great podcast where she shares insights on personal and professional growth. So, busy lady, Carolina, thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking time.
No, thank you for having me, Jason. I was looking forward to this conversation.
So before we leave the podcast, because I know you talk about all kinds of interesting stuff, and I know you are deeply passionate about development. I know I'm springing this on you, so I'm curious to see what you will say. But do you have a favorite personal development tip or bit of advice that you tend to share more often than others through the podcast?
I talk about all kinds of things in the podcast, Jason, because I consider myself a multi-passionate person when it comes to personal development. And I think all of those components always help. But one thing that has always personally helped me is, well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say 2 things. One is setting intentions always, having aligned intentions. And the second one is keeping a beginner's mindset in everything that you do. Because I think at one point, when you learn about something, when you get better at something, you start, losing that awe of exploring new things and embracing curiosity to its fullest. And I think curiosity, I feel, is one key component in personal development. You can't grow if you not stay open to learning new things and increasing also your self-awareness. Now I said 3 things. You asked me for 1, but there you go.
That is a great trifecta of personal development. I think if you could get those 3 things right, that's a pretty good recipe. I'm a big fan of beginner's mind myself, although the more expertise you get, the harder it gets.
Absolutely.
Really, really challenging. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that little bonus, I guess. And as this episode, you get a little personal development nugget. So if you want more of that, go find the podcast. There's lots more good stuff where that came from. But today we're going to dig in to your professional work, your day job. And there's a lot there. You work for an incredible organization. And so let's start by getting to know you and your work a little bit. So could you start by giving us a little bit of context for the work you do and the organization that you work for, please?
Yes. I am part of Schneider Electric, which is a global leader in energy management and automation. And we have a strong focus in sustainability and digital transformation. And our purpose is really to empower everyone to make the most out of our energy and our resources, bridging progress with sustainability for all. And we call this Life is On. It's kind of a motto. And our mission is to be our customers' trusted partner in sustainability and efficiency. And we do this with providing digital solutions that integrate both energy technologies, real-time automation, software, and services. For example, smart homes or resilient infrastructure or future-ready data centers, we help our customers drive innovation and efficiency. And because we're talking about people today, I want to say that what really sets us apart as a company is our people. At Schneider, we believe that our employees are talents And it's not just a slogan, it's a core part of our talent philosophy. We're committed to helping our employees grow to their fullest potential, to develop new skills, to build meaningful careers for today and tomorrow. And that is what I like to say is my role as the lead for talent management and talent development for North America. That is the core of what we do. We help individuals and teams perform to their best and grow to their fullest potential. And, I've been in HR for, as you said, for 2 decades. I've done almost every job in HR. And I love all aspects of HR, but this one by far is my favorite because that fulfillment that it brings to help someone grow their careers, to reach their aspirations, to move the needle and create those win-win solutions, both for the people, but also for the organization. When you find that alignment between people's aspirations and the needs of the business.
Now, for those that don't know Schneider Electric, which I knew of the brand, but I don't think I understood the scope of this organization, can you tell us about kind of how big the organization is? I will say too, in echoing, I've had an opportunity to meet some folks from your organization, and it is really like it's a real thing. You feel the investment of people and the quality of the people and that sort of thing. And you're doing it at scale, at big scale. So can you tell us a little bit about the scale of the company?
Yes, we are a global company. Our headquarters is in France. And we are in more than 130 countries around the world. And I lost count because we keep hiring people all over the world. We have lots of growth regions right now, North America being one of them. But we are approaching 150,000 employees globally.
Wow. All right. So when we're talking about developing talent and really doing this work, what we're going to dig into today, it's at scale, which I think is really interesting and provides a different kind of challenge. And so just wanted to lay that foundation or context. But before we talk about kind of the work, I am curious always to find out sort of how people find their way to this kind of work. And so I'm curious, how did you decide to take this path? How did you find your way into the world of talent development? Was that something that you figured out very early in university, or is that something you found later on?
No, when I went to university, first of all, I wanted to become a journalist. And I'm originally from Spain. At that time, we were living in a different country. And my plan was, I'm going to go back to Spain. I'm going to study journalism, and I'm going to stay in Spain. But life had other plans for me, and I didn't went to Spain to study. So I picked a career that I thought would open me the most possible amount of doors. So I study a hybrid between industrial engineering and business. And I thought, okay, this gives me plenty of opportunities. And coincidence or not, my first job out of college was in HR. When I graduated from my career, I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to study a master's in marketing and I'm going to go on the marketing side. But my first job was in HR, and I fall in love with HR, and I've stayed in HR my entire career. I've done lots of things within HR, as I mentioned before, but also along my career, I've been very fortunate because I've had sponsors, mentors, coaches, cheerleaders, all kinds of supporting figures in my career that have made a difference for me. And I find that this work in talent development and talent management allows me the opportunity to pay forward and pay back what I've been so fortunate to have in my career, while at the same time, I'm doing something that I really enjoy, that fulfills me, that gives me energy, where I can find this interconnection, as I was saying before, between doing that, but also being a strategic and understanding the business needs and connecting the two.
Well, your passion, at least since I have known you, has been evident how committed to and passionate you are about this work, but also about just development more broadly. I mean, that spills obviously over into the podcast and the other work you do beyond your corporate work. So it's really evident. And I think we're going to see that as we get into this next piece of the conversation, because I know when we were prepping or talking about what could we dig into that might be really interesting to talk about and share that you're doing with your team, one of the things you said is, what about your mentorship program, or the way that you approach mentorship to accelerate employee development and career development, and kind of, you have a pretty unique, I think, way of thinking about it. And so I'm excited to dive in, but before we get into how you implement that and what that looks like, I would like to get just kind of, let's talk more broadly about mentoring, because my experience has been that it's kind of one of those things you hear talked about and people reference it, or they'll refer to people as mentors. And we kind of all know that mentorship can be really valuable, but I have seen also an awful lot of organizational mentorship initiatives go wrong because of, I think, like they expect something out of it that maybe isn't quite right. And so let's start with a foundation of, how do you define or think about mentoring and why it matters? Like, let's kind of get clear on how you think about it.
Such a great question, Jason, because I think we use the term mentoring very loosely and as a synonym for a lot of things, right? And that creates expectations on people, then maybe they just set them for disappointment down the road. But if I can use an analogy to refer to mentoring, I always tell people, you're in the driver's seat of your career. Imagine that you're driving this car and you're going from point A and point B. A mentor is kind of that co-pilot, in a sense, that knows the road very well, that has gone through that road many times, that knows where to turn, where the potholes in the road are, and can tell you what you can expect, and you can learn from their mistakes, you can learn from their wins, and somehow expedite your learning process, right? You can get to your destination faster because you have that guide that knows what your GPS doesn't know. And I think that for me is a great analogy for mentoring. And I think also at any given point in time, you can have multiple mentors. I think that's one misconception about mentoring, that a lot of times we think, I want a mentor, one mentor that is going to help me with everything, with my career aspirations and how to fulfill those, with developing my skills, with gaining clarity, with everything. And what I tell people, at any given point, have multiple mentors. And that has been true for my career. And if you want someone to guide you that has gone through that road, you're not going to find the person who has gone through all the roads. So you might need multiple mentors for multiple things. Sometimes you have a mentor that guides you in your career development, another one that helps you improve your communication skills or your strategic thinking, or develop a growth mindset, or whatever that is. But I think that for me is one of the biggest misconceptions about mentoring, to add to your question.
So what is it that you think, I love that analogy, the kind of the idea or the metaphor of the co-pilot. I've heard other people talk about, it's kind of like the other example I've kind of heard is like a sort of the analogy of like the Sherpa that kind of knows the trail, knows the path, knows the whatever, that can kind of guide you and advise you along your path so that you're less likely to fall into the traps that other people do and find a successful journey. But I'm curious what you think, like, what is it that makes mentoring so effective in addition to, or like, what is it that, like, what is mentoring kind of this special sauce that we don't find elsewhere? Like, why do you think this is such an effective tool to use internally?
Yes. Another great question. I think it's because we are social beings. We learn by interacting with others more than we do in any other way. And we learn through experience more than in any other way, right? We all heard about the 70-30 model, right? 70% of your learning is through experience. And I think mentoring is a good intersection of social learning, but also combined with that experience without having the direct experience sometimes, but leaving it through the experience of others. You can go to a training and it can be great and great frameworks, but we know always from the theory to the practice, there is a gap. And I think mentoring can help bridge that gap and get the most out of both of those two things, right? You can learn the theory, then having a mentor that helps you bring that into practice from their own experience, that is powerful.
Well, and I also, and maybe we'll get into this when we talk about kind of your experience with your programs, but one of the things that I think gets undersold, and it's in the social component, I think, of mentorship, is when you have a good mentor that is really invested in you and kind of understands their role as a mentor. One of the things that I have found happens is there's an additional confidence that you gain as the individual when you have this mentor in your corner. So it makes you a little more willing to take the risk. It makes you more willing to kind of step into that experience that maybe you wouldn't. The other thing that I have found is that there's an element of permission sometimes that a mentor almost like you don't, it's not permission that that they need to give you to move forward, but it's like, I have found as a mentor myself to others, one of the gifts I can give them is basically recognizing something in them and encouraging them to do something, almost like giving them permission to do something that you know they probably want to do, but they're holding themselves back. And for whatever reason, having someone who believes in them, sort of encouraging them to do that, gives them that permission to take that step or take that leap. So I don't know, have you found that to be true as well?
I do. And I think mentors play multiple roles, right? I talk about building a career squad and 9 personas that you need in your career squad. And I think one person plays multiple roles and one role can be played by multiple people in that. And I think what you're describing to me sounds as the role of the cheerleader, that person that believes in you even when you don't believe in yourself. And the mentors play a lot of that role, or is the person that you can borrow confidence from. Like you don't have confidence in yourself, but that person has that confidence in you and you kind of borrow it from them to help you get out of your comfort zone. And I think also having a role model, which mentors serve as well, another of those personas that I was referring to, because they've gone through the road before, right? They've done what you're trying to develop. So they serve as role models. And in that also helps your confidence because it's like, okay, if someone has been able to do it, that means I can do it, right? I might need to put the work. Yeah. I might need to work harder and be more intentional and all of those things. But that person is proof that is possible. And that also fuels into that level of confidence. So I think the mentor really, we call it a mentor, but plays multiple roles in that partnership.
Yeah, it's an incredibly at least it can be an incredibly powerful role, I think, when done correctly, we'll say. So yes. let in that theme, let's transition in maybe to talking about your programs. And I know you have multiple mentorship programs or approaches internally. So maybe let's start there. If you would, tell us a little bit about how you go about mentorship and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think mentorship is one of the ways that we bring that philosophy that I was talking to you about in the beginning, that we believe all our employees are talents and they own their careers. Mentoring helps bring that to life. And today we have different programs. I would say for me, mentoring, and when I start there, it's more than a program, right? It's a way to create a ripple effect. When you help one person grow, you've not just impacted their career, but you're shaping the culture, the team, and ultimately the future of the organization. So we believe profoundly in mentoring, and we offer both one-on-one mentoring, We have what we call an open talent market, a platform where our talents or employees can find job opportunities, project opportunities, and mentors on a one-on-one basis. But I think what it's unique about what we're doing at Schneider Electric in North America is our group mentoring program. And this isn't something new. We've been having it for a long time, but it has evolved significantly. And it has expanded, especially over the last year. We've made major changes to this program, and it has become a cornerstone of our culture, helping us to grow inclusive leaders, to foster curiosity and mastery, and build trust across teams and across generations in the workplace. And we've been able to tie it as well to our corporate values. So last year, we revamped our corporate values, and now they stand the acronym inclusion, mastery, purpose, action, curiosity, and team building, which stands for impact. Those are our impact values. And we believe mentoring supports and nurtures our company values, right? It helps connect diverse voices and perspectives and space for everyone to be heard and valued. It also accelerates learning and development because of all the things we were just talking about. It aligns with personal growth, with our broader mission, and empower everyone to make the most of their energy and their resources. It's action driven. I think mentoring for us is not just a conversation, it's about taking meaningful steps towards that personal development and professional development and career growth. It encourages open dialogue. So that's our curiosity value. And then teamwork. So that's where the team approach on this mentoring comes in that makes it unique. And we break some of the mentoring rules with our group mentoring, but it's all to elevate the experience. And I know we'll get more into the nitty gritty of how our program works, but it's not your typical mentoring, right? It's not the typical one-on-one. It's on a group setting. And we found tremendous value in all of these programs.
So let's talk about the group mentoring, because I suspect that if there's something that's sort of new, and I know I've heard of group coaching and I've heard of other group things, but group mentoring was a new one for me. And so I'm curious, talk about how that works. What does that look like?
Yeah. So we call it group mentoring because each mentor supports up to 4 mentees. And you might ask me, why 4 and not 5 or 10? I don't know. We thought 4 is small enough group that foster that real connection. So it's not only about learning from the mentor, but learning from each other in that cohort, in that group. And it's again, as I said, small enough to create that real connection, but big enough to drive diverse perspectives. So you're not only hearing from the mentor himself or herself, but also from peers. And the format is, at a minimum, it includes 3 group sessions and 2 one-on-one sessions. So it's a combination of those 2 things. We have built into it a discovery period. So here's super fun. And I have to tell you this story because I compare our group mentoring program with a Taylor Swift concert. That's how our group mentoring program works. So we hype people up on our group mentoring cohort. We used to start it around September timeframe. That's one of the big changes that we've made. We now start towards the end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter, because we wanted to align it more with the end of the year performance review and the feedback that people get out of that. And we can talk more about that. But we hype people up that we're launching the program. People know about this program because we've been doing for years. And we set a date and a time when it's going to go live. But we give people an exploration time so they can go into our platform and search all the different mentors that exist. This year, we shift to be a skill-led mentoring program. So as a company, we're going through a skills transformation, and we've been thinking, right? And using that as the lens through which we look at everything that we do. How can we align mentoring with skills? So In the past, you will look for the mentor, the person. Now you look for the skill and why you want that skill. And by sorting by skill, you can find all the mentors available. And you can build your top 10 list of the 10 that sound more appealing to you. Maybe you know them or you know of them and you want to have that relationship. And then the day of the launch, we go live, and this year we sold out all our mentors in 55 hours. That's where I compare it with a Taylor Swift concert, right? In 55 hours, all our mentors were gone. We had almost 300 mentors available this year. We had over 1,000, almost 100, 1,100 people participating in the mentoring program. It was all sold out in 55 hours. Wow. And then they met with the mentor, again, in group settings, in one-on-one settings for a period of time. And it all rounds around that skill that they selected, right? And those skills are aligned with our company values, what we call human skills or soft skills. And also from our strategic workforce planning, we extract what are the key skills that the business needs today and in the future to continue to grow and grow profitably. And those are the skills that we design the program around. So you go to your performance review, you get feedback. That feedback can be translated into these are the skills I want to work on in the next year. And then you can join this group mentoring program and find someone who has expertise in that skill that can help you in navigating the road.
So where I start going to now as I think about this is how do we make this, how do we ensure that it's having the desired effect? And so some questions around that, I guess, for me is, I'm sure you do, but what kind of support do you provide to the mentors so that they understand how to engage with this group or how to do this? Because I can imagine if it's the first time you're being a mentor, this feels like it could be a little overwhelming if I haven't done it before. So I'm curious how you support those mentors.
Well, it all starts with picking the mentors, right? Not everyone is a mentor. So in the past, we've been focusing on people who already have some leadership experience. So they're not foreign to the concept of mentoring. They've been mentoring their own teams, or whether they're direct reports or teams through indirectly. So that has been one filter through which we decide who can be a mentor. Now we're thinking about, and I'm sure you're going to ask me where this is going in the future on how we continue to evolve that. But I think it starts with selecting the right people to be mentors. Now, we're not perfect. There's always some mentors that do better than others. And that's true for everything that we do, right? So we do provide some sessions to prepare mentors. We have a little bit of structure, but not too much structure. We want to give them also flexibility to take the topic where they feel it can go and based on the needs of the 4 people that they're supporting. But we do provide a little bit of structure around how to have these conversations, how to structure the conversations. One of the things we're thinking about as next iterations of this, also because of how the ways we learn are shifting, is to create like bits of 15-minute videos with tips for mentors throughout the year. So it's not just training them and enabling them where we're kicking off the program, but throughout the year on an ongoing basis, because whether it's as part of this program, whether it's on one-on-one mentoring, whether it's leading their own teams, those are things they can use to be more effective leaders.
That makes a ton of sense in terms of, continuing to provide support, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you're in it, right? So that probably would be, how are you measuring the effectiveness of this? Like, how do you know? And I guess maybe it starts with what do you expect the mentorship program, this group mentoring, to accomplish for you? And how are you measuring whether it's delivering that desired impact?
Yeah, impact is always tricky, right? There's a subjectivity to it. And I think, impact looks different for every person that participates in the program. At the end of the day, our goal with a program like this is we want to support and enable our talents to continue to develop within the company, to develop new skills, to continue to grow, to take really that driver's seat of their careers, right? So we do feedback surveys and we ask questions around what was most valuable. Did it met your expectations? What did you learn? How are you applying what you're learning? How did the program help? And we receive tons of amazing, inspiring stories from people who participate in the program. I was actually talking to someone recently, and you mentioned the topic of confidence at the beginning. And I was talking to one of the mentees who shared that the program gave her the confidence to take on a stretch assignment that they would never have thought about they could handle, and they crush it. And that's the kind of transformation and impact that we are seeing from the program. And not only from the mentees, also from the mentors, right? Some of the mentors scout talent through the program. They identify the next person that they want to invite to join their teams or support them with a project. So it really has created impact both for mentors and for mentees. I think a lot of times when we think about a mentoring program, we think about what is in for the mentee. But I'll tell you, I've been on both sides. I'm sure you have as well. And you get more even as a mentor from things like this in terms of expanding your perspective, getting to know talents in the organization, getting to learn about other parts of the business, honing in the skills of mentoring and leadership and coaching and all of these things. So I know it's a big answer to your question. You probably were hoping for me to share some facts and figures. But I would say that's the way that we know the program is working. And the fact that it sells out in 55 hours, that tells us that our talents are hungry for that kind of development, for that kind of support and mentoring, and they see the value. We see people coming back every year to join the program again.
Yeah. Well, one of the benefits too, to build on your point about the benefits to mentors, and this connects back to the earlier point about beginner's mind. I find mentorship is a really good way to remind you of the things you forget about, like the really fundamental, simple things that helps you kind of like when you can see these things through somebody's eyes who's earlier in the journey, it really reminds you of some things and connects you back to some things that are really important or meaningful and invites you to kind of step back into it and see it differently and find opportunities. So there is a ton of value on both sides for sure. So I have to ask you now, particularly because you said I was going to, what's next? What is, if you're dreaming about another layer of mentoring or evolution of mentoring, what's on your vision list here for where mentoring goes next?
Yeah. I mean, our mentoring program is constantly evolving, right? It's been evolving every year. We try to have this continuous improvement mindset. And we evolve it every year. And for us, I think the big leap was this year when we shift to a skills-based mentoring program. That was a big leap. We were aiming and looking into the future and this could be. And what we see is this connection of the talents, ambitions, the business needs, meeting in the middle in the form of skills, and how we tie that to the feedback talents receive to help them with their blind spots, with their development opportunities. We even have been brainstorming about adding a layer of reverse mentoring. We have had reverse mentoring programs in other parts of the organization for different purposes. They're very common. I know a lot of companies use reverse mentoring for things like digital skills, AI, and things of this sort. But we've been thinking about how do we change our perspective on what makes a good mentor And now looking at how we recruit people as mentors, because that's one of our challenges. Scaling the program and having enough mentors is one of our key challenges. So looking at what makes a good mentor, regardless of whether they have the leadership experience or not, what level they are in the organization, how many years of experience they have. We want to continue to evolve that.
Sure.
And we also, I touch a little bit on this, is that continuous learning and development of our mentors. How we make that a year-round process versus this just one time of a year when we run this program that lasts a few months, but really the effort is concentrated just in one piece of the year. So those are some of the things that are in the future. We continue to tweak the technology that we use is all homegrown. We don't have a sophisticated software that we purchase. We develop through a Power App, our platform, where people can build their top 10 lists. They can find mentors. They can connect with mentors where the matching happens. And by design, we haven't done the matching. The matching is done by the mentees. So the mentees get to choose their mentors. We're not matching them. I know there's technology out there that kind of reads the profiles and does like a match.com for mentoring. We don't use that. We believe and stay firm to our philosophy that talents own their development. And therefore, we give them the opportunity to choose what mentor they want. But in summary, we want to evolve the technology. We want to think about the criteria of what meets a good mentor and maybe introduce some aspects of reverse mentoring, continue to align with skills, and then continue to scale.
So I guess I want to ask one last question, because I think the assumption is always, if I'm listening to this and I'm in a smaller organization, or if I have a more limited budget and maybe I'm listening and saying, okay, this sounds great. I'd like to step down the path here, but I'm not sure kind of if I can pull it off, if I have the resources, the time, or the support to do it. Do you have any kind of quick advice for someone on where to start or how to start down this path if they want to explore it for their organization?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to take an opportunity to shout out to the lead of this program, because I have someone in my team who is the mastermind, is the one who pulls it off every year, Nancy Paradis. She does an amazing job. And I know we're very privileged to have her, right? And have a portion of her capacity being focused on continue to improve this program, run the program, and iterate, right? And I know not every company has that luxury and that privilege to have someone that can be dedicated to that. And I would say start small, but start. Mentoring is super powerful, and you're missing out on a very low cost opportunity to help develop your talents if you're not tapping into mentoring. You don't need a sophisticated program, right? You just need to put it out there, invite people to join, like identify a handful of leaders in your organization or people that could be good mentors, and just promote that and have people enroll. And it might be done in an Excel sheet, and you might need to spend a couple of hours putting these groups together, and then let them run with it. That's the beauty of mentoring. Like, once it's off the ground, the relationship, the partnership between mentor and mentee is self-directed. You don't need someone monitoring that. And I think that is one of the values that we inject into this program, is trust in the people that are part of the program, both mentors and mentees, and really empowering them to run with it. So I would say start small, start simple, but start, because if you're not having a mentoring program, whether it's one-to-one or group mentoring setting, you're missing out on an opportunity, on a low cost to free opportunity to develop your talent.
Very simply said. I love that. Just get started. Start small, but get started. Okay, couple questions for you as we wrap up. Number one is, what is a challenge that you are currently wrestling with at work?
Related to group mentoring or completely
just
unrelated?
in general.
Well, I think one challenge that we are facing is people making time and space for learning. We learn in many different ways, right? I think we learn every day, even if we're not intentionally learning. I firmly believe that every experience we face is a learning opportunity. But being in talent management and talent development, what we realize is we are in a fast growing region with very high demands. And I don't talk to anyone of peers in the industry that they don't feel that this issue of people be spread too thin, or just the workload and the complexities, all the ambiguity that we're dealing with today. We live in a VUCA world, right? Very complex. So sometimes it's hard to make time and space for learning. And so that's one challenge that we face. I think it's not unique to our organization. When I read through some of engagement studies and benchmarks outside, I think it's something that is common to all of us. One thing that I've learned is, every company is a world, but we all have more things in common than not. We're typically all trying to solve for the same problems. We just bucket them differently, color code them differently, label them differently, but the challenges are in general the same, right? So I would say that is one big challenge. And the other one is just the rapid growth and the rapid pace of change. When we think about, again, in my space, we think about skills and the skills that are needed today and in the future. That is changing and evolving so quickly, right? And keeping up with the pace of that change is certainly a challenge.
I think a lot of people will relate to that. I think the challenge around development or time for development is one that I hear about all the time. And it's interesting because at the same token, and you even kind of alluded to it earlier, employees at all levels are hungry for development. And so there's like this catch-22 of like, they want more development, but they don't feel like they're in a position to make time and space for it necessarily. And so trying to figure that out is when you figure that out, which I'm sure that you will, knowing you, but when you figure that out, please come back and talk to me about it so that we can share that, because I think that is an issue that everybody faces.
And if you happen to have a guest that talks about how to figure it out, please share with us, because I think, again, we're all facing the same challenges and there's a huge opportunity to learn from each other.
Yeah. Well, and I think complicating all of it is the way people are learning is evolving too, right? And the way we have to share learning. And so that's a complex problem to be continued. We will come back to that one. So final big question for you is one I ask every guest, and it is about the future. And so I'm curious, when you think about the future of work, and let's say 5 years from now, what is one thing you hope will be different about work broadly than it is today?
That is a very loaded question, Jason. I have lots of hopes for the future, but I think we all have lived this crossroad that the pandemic presented to us in the way that work is done and how it happens. And I think it has been the one single event that has most significantly impacted work that I know for our generation, right? And I think that continues to evolve. As we said, we live in a world that it's a VUCA world. Change is constant. So I'm hoping that we strengthen social connections at work. I feel like a lot of companies have gone back and forth with remote work, in-office work. And at the end of the day, it's not about where you work, it's about how you connect with others. And for us, for example, we value a lot FaceTime because we believe that it creates that connection, that creates synergies and innovation and drives creativity and problem solving. So I'm hoping that work evolves in the way that allows us to do more of those things. And I hope with now the introduction of AI, which is the other catalyst of change at work, that we all work smarter. And that in 5 years from now, we're going to be solving completely different problems. We're going to be leveraging our strengths and our skill sets in completely different ways that are more challenging in a good way, like really leveraging the power of humanity in things that really matter, and be able to redesign work in a way that it's meaningful and impactful and drives more value and impact to the people at work, to the organizations, to communities, and to the world as a whole.
I love it. So as we finish, I always like to kind of finish with a check out question. So Carolina, what one word best describes how you are feeling right now as we wrap up this conversation?
I'm energized. Like, I can keep going. I really feel energized after our conversation, Jason. So thank you again for having me today.
Yeah, my one word is delighted. And the reason is because I can remember, and I will always remember, the exact moment when you and I, or at least when I first became aware of you, raising your hand in my session at Work Human. And from then on, it's been like from that moment to this conversation and everything in between has just been a delight. So I'm so grateful that you are here. Thank you for saying yes and for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, I need to connect, I need more Carolina in my life, where is the best place for someone to connect with you?
The best place is LinkedIn, and you can find me as Carolina Terrazas. And from there, we can connect in different ways, but I would say that is the one point of connection, the best way to connect.
And I can attest that you are active. You are active there. Yeah. So if you interact with Carolina, you will probably have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I will say, because I love what you're doing with the podcast, where if someone wants to go learn more about the podcast, where should they go?
They can go to any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, any podcast platform, and you can find it as Leading Yourself.
All right, Leading Yourself. All right. Well, Carolina, thank you so much. Thanks for being here, and thank you for listening. I hope that you can take away some inspiration if you are maybe not yet offering a mentorship program, that now you have some seeds and some inspiration and a nudge to go do it. If you are, I hope some of the ideas here help you make it better, push it further, think bigger about it. So take it back, put it to good use, and please remember to check in with those that matter most to you. Might be the most important thing you can do today. Till next time.